Welcome to the June edition of Washington Watch. Today's guest is Congressman Paul Ryan, who represents the 1st District of Wisconsin. He is the ranking member of the House Budget Committee, where he works to bring fiscal discipline and accountability to the federal government. He is a senior member of the House Ways and Means Committee, which has jurisdiction over tax policy, Social Security, health care, and trade laws. Congressman Ryan is currently serving his 6th term in Congress and has developed a plan to tackle our looming fiscal crisis called a roadmap for America's future. Congressman Ryan received his degree in economics and political science from Miami University of Ohio. He is married and lives in Janesville with his wife and 3 children. Paul, I know that I speak for the people of the 3rd District. I am very pleased to have you on this show for the month of June, and you have really been a leader in the House of Representatives. Those watching the show can tell that you're a young man, but you are one of the future leaders not only of the Republican Party but of our nation. I would like for you to, if you will, explain this plan to a roadmap for America's future, because I'm excited about what you are proposing.
Great. Well, hey, first of all, great to be here with you, Walter. Thanks for hosting this and having me on your show. I put this roadmap for America's future out in 2008, put a new version out just this last January. It's a bill that does 3 things, basically. Number 1, it not only balances the budget, but it pays off our debt. Number 2, it fulfills the mission of these entitlement programs in a sustainable way by fulfilling the mission of health and retirement security. And number 3, it puts our economy in the position not just to, follow globalization, but to lead globalization, to succeed and lead in global competition in the 21st century economy. So a prosperous economy, a debt-free nation, and the mission of health and retirement security secured for all Americans. Those are the 3 things it does. It's basically a fundamental restructuring of our federal budget. And I argue that it's better to do it now before we have our own debt crisis. It's very clear statistically, it's an irrefutable fact, that we will have a debt crisis in this country, that we are borrowing in the future far more than we can ever hope to pay back. We already know we're giving our kids and our grandkids a lower standard of living based upon the path we're on. And so what this does is it says to people in and near retirement, those on Social Security and Medicare or about to be on it, people 55 and above, they're grandfathered in the current system. No changes occur for them whatsoever. But because we know these programs are going bankrupt, for the next generation, they're reformed. And they're reformed in ways to resemble the kinds of plans that you and I have as congressmen. The healthcare system that Medicare becomes for younger people works like the one that you and I have as federal employees or members of Congress. The Social Security system is a system where if people want to stay in the traditional system, they can, or they can have a retirement benefit just like you and I have as a member of Congress with our thrift savings plan. Doing these kinds of reforms combined with real health care reform that's not government-run health care, but patient-centered, consumer-directed health care, along with fundamental tax reform that's pro-family, pro-small business, pro-international competition, that gets us where we need to be to have a prosperous economy, higher standards of living, paying off our national debt, and in achieving these key goals for our society. And so it keeps our government limited and our people free. That's the idea of it. And it's been certified by the Congressional Budget Office as achieving the things I just described.
Well, that is so impressive. And Paul, I really want to commend you again. You really have the ability to really deal with these issues and be well respected by people on both sides of the aisle.
Well, thank you.
Let me ask you, who else is taking an interest in your roadmap for America?
Well, actually, the president brought it up at our retreat, and he brought it up basically saying it's a serious proposal, that the numbers do add up, but that he has big philosophical differences of opinion with it. And I understand that. He clearly does. It's been looked at from the actuaries at Medicare as making Medicare permanently solvent. The actuaries at Social Security, the trustees, say it makes Social Security permanently solvent. Solves the Medicaid funding problem we have in our states. So it's been looked at from experts, fiscal experts from the left and the right, members of Congress, other leaders, as achieving these goals of preempting a government debt crisis. I would simply say, though, Walter, we really basically have a choice of 2 futures in this country right now. And we have time to make the right choice. Before long, we probably won't. And what I mean when I say that is, we have the choice of renewing the American idea, where the government's limited, we maximize liberty, freedom, free enterprise, self-determination, those things that make us great and exceptional as a country. And this roadmap is designed to preserve that American idea and prevent our government from getting so large that it stifles entrepreneurship and economic growth and gives our kids a debt they can't handle. That's the choice we can make to prevent that from happening. The trajectory we are on right now is to basically move us down what I call a cradle-to-grave social welfare state. And the trajectory of our current government, this Congress, and what they've done with health care and all the other spending is really giving us a choice. Do you want an opportunity society with a safety net, or do you want a cradle-to-grave social welfare state like what they have in Europe, which clearly precipitates the debt crisis that they're experiencing right now? These are the choices. The roadmap is an alternative to the welfare state that is being erected right now in Washington, and that is the path we are on. And I would just simply say, reapplying those principles that built this country to the problems of the day, you can fix the problems, preempt this debt crisis, and give us the kind of prosperity and individual freedom that we've known and loved in America that defined us and made us the most exceptional nation in the history of the world.
Paul, you mentioned that President Obama had taken an interest in your proposal. Explain to those watching this show as well as to me, how do you generate the interest behind an effort like you are proposing? Because I worry about so many times with great ideas and really seems like programs that could work and make this country a better hope for our children and grandchildren. But it's a matter of how do you move this forward? Is it going to take several years? Are you going to have to build support among Republicans and Democrats, the American people? How do you see moving forward?
I've been going at it for more than 2 years now already.
Okay.
I think the debt crisis that's occurring around the world and in Europe in particular is sort of concentrating people's minds on this issue. So I do believe that more and more people want to know the facts. They want to be talked to by like adults instead of children. And I would argue that touching entitlements with reforms, albeit gradual reforms, was always considered the third rail of politics.
Right.
You touch it, you die. Well, I don't think it's like that anymore. People know you've got to tackle these fiscal challenges or else the whole country goes down. And so I think people are ready for this type of a thing. I put it out there, and this is the only plan that's been introduced in Congress between the House and the Senate, Republicans or Democrats, that actually achieves the goal of paying off our debt and balancing our budget and making these programs solvent. So I put this out there not saying that I have it all figured out. This is how I would do it. My goal in putting this out there in 2008 and 2010 was to say, here's my way of doing it. Please have other people bring their plans to the table. And unfortunately, nobody on the other side of the aisle has joined us in that debate. And unfortunately, if we don't fix this problem, the kind of tax burden that people are going to have to bear in this country are tax levels we've never seen before, which will stifle our economy.
Paul, have you had a chance to talk to former Senator Alan Simpson? He is going to co-chair the Debt Commission with a gentleman from North Carolina, Erskine Bowles.
I'm a member of the commission.
Well, I'm glad I brought this up.
Yeah,
I didn't realize that.
No, I'm one of the three House Republicans on the commission.
Well, congratulations on that.
You.
I missed that. I didn't see that. So.
Yeah, I've been getting to know Erskine quite well the last month or so. I didn't know him at all before this commission started. He seems like a very even-handed guy.
Yes, he is.
Very fair arbiter, and obviously I know Alan Simpson. I just met him on the commission. So the commission is meeting, and we're discussing these various things.
That's great.
As far as I'm concerned, as a conservative, I'm not interested in creating some new revenue machine for Washington to have the tax levels rise to the spending levels. We got to get the spending down. That's the problem right now. Don't have a revenue problem in Washington. We got a spending problem. And so we're bringing these ideas to the commission, as a member of the commission, hopefully to get some bipartisan agreement on the need and the wherewithal to reduce spending.
Well, I am so encouraged, and I'm sure it was in the press. I just missed seeing who was on the commission, but that gives me hope now that, and certainly those watching the show, that a young man like yourself with such great innovative ideas to make America safe, financially speaking, that you are on this commission. Can we talk about the health care bill?
Sure.
And you were very outspoken on the Ways and Means Committee. You did a great job along with other Republicans trying to bring some sound science, if I can use that terminology, to this effort. And people back home, it is still a very, very hot button issue. People, and I'm one of those, I didn't vote for the bill, as you well know, no Republican did.
That's right.
That we want to know, are there going to be any options? Let's say by chance that in the November election that the Republicans pick up one house or the other, let's say not both, but just one or the other, will there be some opportunity to review what is passed in this health care plan? Do you see any opportunity?
I really see 2013 as the best opportunity. The reason I said this, I just spoke to a group of doctors in Milwaukee last night about this, which is, well, if you guys take Congress, can't you defund this thing or repeal this thing? For us to make any substantial difference in this law, which is now law, Congress has to pass a bill and the President's got to sign it into law. Well, President Obama just spent the last 15 months making this a signature issue, putting it into law. So even if Congress sends him a bill defunding it, first of all, you'd have to pass that bill through the House and the Senate, and we'd have to have control of the Senate to do that. But second, the President would have to sign it. So I really believe we should repeal this law. I think it's a terrible law. It's a fiscal house of cards. It's going to lead to rationing of health care and replace it with real reform. Richard Burr and I, he's my Senate counterpart, have a bill called the Patient's Choice Act, which is designed to have a patient-centered health care system so that everybody gets affordable care, including people with pre-existing conditions, without having the government run or ration health care. Now, that's the kind of thing that I would like to see us replace this law with, but the soonest we can probably do this is 2013 with a new president and a new Congress. We have to build the case between now and then to do that. I would argue we'll be able to make that case, because over the next 4 years, this law gets rolled out. The subsidies don't kick in until 2014, but between now and 2014, Medicare cuts, which will put Medicare providers out of business, tax increases that will slow down economic growth and job creation, and you'll have premium increases on health insurance premiums for many Americans, millions of Americans, all as a result of this law. So I do not see this law improving in popularity. I think it's going to drop from where it is, which is a fairly low level to begin with.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that, because I have, like any member of Congress, the frustration, and I share that frustration, quite frankly, of people saying, what can you do about it? When can you address this god-awful health care plan? And I mean that respectfully. I'm a very religious man, so I meant that very respectful. But you're right. If you don't have the White House itself to admit that there need to be some changes made, then it's probably not going to happen. And that is, most people realize. Let me ask you, the frustration, I always felt that if President Bush, instead of speaking to the issue of Social Security, which we know is in dire shape, situation, if he maybe, a lot of people in my district would like to see us change this tax system. I know we have so many other problems, but if you could speak to that for just a moment, because you are on Ways and Means. In the best of times, if we were in the best of times, which we're not, do you see that the tax system ever being changed?
I actually think there's an opportunity in the future. Now, I don't think it's going to be necessarily with this kind of a Congress and with President Obama, but I think in the near future there's going to be an opportunity. The tax code basically blows up in 2011 and 2013. All those tax cuts, the Bush tax cuts, expire in 2011, and they're going to expire for investment income for small businesses, meaning higher tax rates. 2013, even higher tax rates on top of that for investment income, which is what creates jobs, makes us more productive as an economy. And you also have the alternative minimum tax eating away at the middle class. And so because of all those convergence of bad things happening in the tax code, which will hurt our economy, and economists are predicting, they think the economy is going to be slower next year than it is this year because of tax increases. I think that gives us the opportunity to make the case for fundamental tax reform. Look, the current tax code is such a mess, and it's getting even messier. I mean, it penalizes all those things that makes America great. Saving, investing, starting a business, raising a family. These are things that are penalized in the current tax system. And so, you know, I'm more of a flat tax fan. There are good tax reform bills out there. The fair tax is a good one. I'm kind of the flat tax guy. I believe we should have a tax code that's very simple. You don't have to have a burdensome IRS. Under the bill that I've proposed in the roadmap, you can fill out your taxes on a postcard, send it in. Very generous exemptions for families and people raising children. And also taxing income once at its source, meaning you're not having 1, 2, 3, 4 layers of taxation on capital. The key here, Walter, in the 21st century economy is we can't tax our job creators and our businesses a lot more than our competitors are taxing theirs, but unfortunately that's exactly what we're doing. And so I propose fundamental tax reform. So America is a place where you want to build a business, where a global headquarters wants to be located. We right now have the second highest corporate tax rate in the industrialized world. We tax our exports, but not our imports. I would argue with flipping that around, doing what our trade competitors do to us, take tax off of exports, put it on imports. That's not protectionism, that's not tariffs. That's called border adjusting your taxes. So you make an incentive. So it makes sense to build stuff in America and sell it overseas. 97% of the world's consumers are in other countries. We need to be a prosperous, growing economy by having a manufacturing base, building things here, exporting them, and giving families and small businesses a simple tax system that helps them get ahead and encourages them to save and invest in the future.
Paul, I know you have a website for this roadmap for America's future. If you don't mind sharing that
I'm glad you asked that because I forget to plug it sometimes.
Well, I think you're going to create a lot of interest for those watching this show in Eastern North Carolina that would probably call our office and say, will you give us his website? So if you don't mind.
It's www.americanroadmap.org. So just go to americanroadmap.org, and that is a very interactive website. Tax reform, healthcare reform, entitlement reform, spending and budget reform, all of it taken together shows you literally a roadmap for America in the 21st century to keep our government lean, limited, free, prosperous, and paying off our debt. And it shows you, using the Congressional Budget Office's own numbers, how we in fact plan on doing it. It's a real budget. It's a real bill with actual numbers to back it up. And so you can go to americanroadmap.org to look at it.
Well, let me go back to the Debt Commission for just a moment, as we only have a few minutes left. But the Debt Commission, as you and this 16 commissioners, is that correct? Okay. So ideas like the Roadmap for America's Future would be an opportunity to talk about the aspects of that proposal.
That's right. Okay. It does. The majority of the commission are Democrats, and there are 6 elected Republicans. It's Tom Crapo, Judd Gregg, Tom Coburn from the Senate, myself, Jeb Henschling, and Dave Camp from the House.
Splendid.
And then there are 2 Republicans appointed by President Obama, and the rest are all Democrats. So clearly the tilt of the commission is more in favor of Democrats, some of whom are fairly liberal. And so it's going to, I don't know what to expect out of this commission as far as it's going to be a very conservative kind of a product. I'm really hoping we get some spending discipline coming out of this thing, but I'm not sure exactly what we're going to get out of it.
Well, I don't want to imply that I can do things I cannot do, but I do have a working relationship with Erskine Bowles.
Yeah.
I did when he was Chief of Staff to President Clinton, and he'd helped me with a deal dealing with the little horses down in my district that were traced back to the Spanish Mustangs. And so I'm going to, after this show, I'm going to try to call Erskine next day or two and tell him I was fortunate enough to have you on the show and how much I think of you and admire what you've been trying to do. And I know without that call, by the way, he would reach out because he's
become
that
a
kind
big
of
fan
person.
of his. I've just gotten to know him. We had a nice conversation just this weekend on the phone. I really have a lot of respect for Erskine, and I can tell he really wants to do what's right for the country.
He does, and I know Alan Simpson feels the same way that you feel. I feel, Erskine feels that this is an opportunity to do something today instead of waiting till tomorrow, because tomorrow might be too late.
We got to tackle these problems, or else they're going to tackle us.
Paul, let me ask you, and we've got a minute or so left, but how much time do we have, meaning a window, this opportunity to do what has to be done for this country, in your opinion, before
2 years
we
ago,
go the way of Greece?
I used to say we had 12 years. Now I think it's about half that time. There's 2 problems we have, and I call them tipping points. Right now, about 60% of the American people get more benefits and dollar value from the federal government than they pay back in taxes. So we're going to a majority of takers versus makers in America, and that will be tough to come back from that. They'll be dependent on the government for their livelihoods than on themselves. That's one tipping point. The other tipping point is all these entitlements that are exploding our debt. So I think we just have a handful of years before it gets pretty late.
So the handful of years would be, I'm going to nail it down a little bit more, 5, 6 years?
5 or 6 years is just off the top of my head, but credit markets are a tough thing to speculate.
Yeah.
But it's accelerating the problem, and that's why we said 10 years 2 years ago. Now we think it's about 5 or 6 years.
Paul, I want to thank you for being on this show. I know that the people of my district, the 3rd Congressional District, have enjoyed watching and listening to you. Again, thank you for your leadership in trying to save America's future. And with that, in about 1 minute, we're going to have Glenn Downs, my Chief of Staff, will be on the show to talk about several issues that you have brought to our attention from the district. And again, I want to thank Paul Ryan for being on our show. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Walter.
Thank you.